There is a rule old money families follow that you were never taught. They don't speak first. They don't rush to clarify. They don't fill silence. They let you talk. And while you're talking, they're building a psychological blueprint of you. Not just your words, your leverage, your pressure points, your urgency. Most people think influence is about what you say. Old money knows it's about what you don't. And once you understand this rule, every meeting, every negotiation, every room you walk into will feel different. Because you'll stop trying to impress. You'll start trying to extract. The game. You didn't know you were playing. Every conversation is a transaction. Not always money, but information. And information is currency. The person who reveals more while learning less loses. The person who reveals less while learning more wins. That's information asymmetry. It's the same principle that drives hedge funds. And it's the reason insiders outperform retail investors. It's the reason institutions beat amateurs. The side with better information and tighter control of it dominates. But here's the part nobody tells you. Information asymmetry starts before numbers hit the table. It starts with who talks first. Why speaking first feels powerful, but isn't. When you enter a room, your instincts push you to establish yourself. Speak first. Set the tone. Control the narrative. Sounds strong, right? You're wrong. When you speak first, you anchor yourself. You expose your framework. You reveal your assumptions. You give away data, and you don't even realize it. You tell them your budget range. You reveal your timeline. You hint at your urgency. You expose your psychology. Why does your financial advisor never warn you about this? Because they aren't negotiating your leverage. They're managing your portfolio. Two different games. Old money plays both. Silence is not awkward. It's strategic. You've been conditioned to fear silence. In social settings, silence feels like tension. In negotiations, silence feels like losing momentum. In interviews, silence feels like failure. But silence is pressure. And pressure makes people leak information. When you stop talking, the other person experiences discomfort. They assume something is wrong. They rush to fill the gap. And in that rush, they reveal more than they intended. They clarify their position. They soften their demands. They disclose constraints. You didn't ask. You just paused. That's leverage, the extraction phase. Old money doesn't enter conversations to impress. They enter to gather. You know what amateurs do in meetings? They pitch. They sell. They explain. They perform. Old money asks one calibrated question. Then they listen. What are you looking to accomplish? And then they shut up. Because the more the other side explains, the clearer the leverage becomes. Are they desperate to close this quarter? Are they under pressure from their boss? Are they overexposed in a certain market? Are they emotionally attached to the outcome? Every word reveals motive. Every motive reveals vulnerability. And vulnerability defines power. The three layers of information asymmetry. Most people think information asymmetry is about data. It's not. It has layers. Layer 1, factual information numbers, deadlines, terms. This is the surface layer. Layer 2, emotional information anxiety, excitement, urgency. This is where leverage hides. Layer 3, structural information. Who actually has decision authority? Who influences the decision maker? who is pretending to have power. This is where dominance is established. If you speak first, you only operate on layer 1. If you listen first, you start accessing layers 2 and 3. That's where real negotiation lives. Reading the room like old money, you walk into a boardroom. On 10 people seated. Who speaks first? Who makes eye contact before responding? Who waits for subtle approval before answering? Who interrupts? Who defers? These are not random behaviors. They reveal hierarchy. Old money doesn't just listen to words. They watch micro-reactions. When someone proposes an idea, who leans back? Who stiffens? Who nods too aggressively? Power dynamics are silent. If you're busy talking, you miss them. If you're silent, you map them. And once you map them, you stop negotiating blindly. You negotiate precisely. The first offer trap. Let's talk numbers. In negotiation theory, the first number sets the anchor. You throw out $80,000. They were prepared to offer $110,000. You just capped your own upside. And you'll never know. Why does your CPA never emphasize anchoring psychology? Because they're not trained in behavioral leverage. They're trained in compliance. Old money understands behavioral economics. And they know anchoring shapes perception. So they let the other side reveal their number first. And when that number hits the table, they don't react emotionally. They pause. And that pause makes the other side nervous. Nervous people revise. Silence exposes desperation. Here's what's fascinating. The more someone talks without being prompted, the more invested they are. Investment creates vulnerability. If someone keeps explaining why a deal is great, they're selling themselves. If someone keeps justifying their price, they're insecure about it. If someone fills every silence, they're uncomfortable with uncertainty. And discomfort is leverage. Old money doesn't interrupt desperation. They let it expand. Because expansion reveals weakness. The status signal of speaking. Last high-status individuals rarely rush to speak. Watch political summits. Watch major CEOs during earnings calls. They let others present data. They respond after. Why? Well, because speaking last reframes the discussion. When you speak last, your words become summary. They become judgment. They become direction. When you speak first, your words become suggestion. And suggestion invites resistance. Old money understands sequencing. Sequence controls perception. Perception controls influence. The psychological mechanism behind silence. Your brain hates ambiguity. Silence equals ambiguity. Ambiguity creates cognitive tension. To resolve tension, humans talk. They justify. They explain. They add context. You don't need interrogation tactics. You need restraint. The longer the pause, the more likely the other side adds something valuable. This is why elite negotiators are comfortable with silence. They know the brain will betray itself. Why new money fails. This rule, new money wants to prove status. Old money assumes status. That assumption changes behavior. When you feel the need to assert yourself, you speak early. When you feel secure, you observe. The urge to speak first often isn't strategy. It's anxiety. And anxiety leaks leverage. Ask yourself next time you're about to jump in. Am I adding value? Or am I soothing my own discomfort? Big difference. The dinner table discipline. Old money families teach this at dinner. Children are expected to listen. to observe, to wait. They're not encouraged to dominate conversations. They're trained to understand context before contributing. By adulthood, this becomes instinct. They enter rooms scanning, not performing. They collect before they project. And that habit compounds over decades. You think wealth is built only through investments? It's built through positioning. Positioning begins in conversation. Tactical silence in action. Here's a practical scenario. You're negotiating compensation. They ask, "What salary are you expecting?" Most people answer immediately. Instead, I'd say, "I'm curious what range you've allocated for this role." Then stop. Don't add justification. Don't over-explain. Just wait. The silence will do the work. They will reveal their budget. Now you negotiate from information, not guesswork. That's asymmetry. How silence changes. Perception. Silence makes you appear composed. Composure signals options. Options signal power. If you don't seem desperate, you don't seem controllable. And in negotiations, controllability determines outcomes. The more controllable you appear, the lower your leverage. The less controllable you appear, the more carefully others tread. Silence creates that perception. Not arrogance, not aggression. Control. The hidden advantage in social settings. Even outside business, this rule dominates. At networking events, the loudest person rarely has the most influence. The quiet observer often leaves with the strongest connections. Because while others broadcast, they absorb. They remember details. They follow up precisely. They position themselves strategically. Influence is rarely loud. It's measured. The compounding effect. Here's the real advantage. If you let others talk first consistently, you accumulate insight. Patterns emerge. You begin to anticipate behavior. You recognize negotiation styles instantly. You detect insecurity within seconds. That predictive power compounds, just like capital. And compound informational advantage is unstoppable. But here's the twist. Silence alone is not power. Uninformed silence is weakness. Strategic silence requires awareness. You must listen actively. You must analyze in real time. You must connect dots. Old money doesn't sit quietly because they're passive. They sit quietly because they're calculating. That's the difference. The moment you feel the urge. The most important moment in any conversation is the second you feel the urge to speak. That urge is your ego, your anxiety, your need to validate yourself. If you override it, you gain leverage. If you obey it, you give leverage away. It's a micro-decision, repeated hundreds of times over a lifetime. Those micro-decisions shape outcomes. Outcomes shape wealth. Why? This rule feels unnatural. Because modern culture rewards noise. Social media rewards oversharing. Meetings reward participation trophies. Performance culture rewards visibility. But wealth preservation rewards discretion. Old money optimizes for long-term control, not short-term validation. So they speak less, reveal less, observe more. The core principle. The person who understands more than they reveal controls the interaction. Let that sink in. Understanding comes from listening. Revealing comes from speaking. So if you want control, reverse your instinct. Let them go first. Let them show their hand. Let them expose their priorities. Then respond. Calmly. Precisely. Strategically. And this is only part one, because in the next phase, we'll break down how to use calibrated follow-up questions after they talk, how to detect micro-leverage in tone and pacing, how to handle silence when the other side tries to weaponize it, and how old money turns conversation into a full power audit without appearing aggressive. Because letting others talk first isn't etiquette, it's positioning. And positioning determines everything.